Okay, so welcome back, everybody, anybody, and now we're going to do some tutorials for the 747, just the basic 747 in Microsoft Flight Sim 2020. It's quite basic in a lot of ways, so we will discuss some of those, and we'll just do kind of a general overview of the 747 systems, some differences between the real world and this base model in Flight Sim, which to be honest isn't that detailed. Looks really, really good, but some of the stuff in it isn't that great at the minute. So we'll talk about those, and yeah, we'll get ready to push and start, and then we'll make another video from there for a wee bit of tutorial for the people that want it. But yeah, on the outside, this thing looks unbelievable. So at the minute we're sitting on Terminal 5 A gates in London Heathrow. We'll have a quick look at the chart as well, just for general kind of awareness of what we're doing, where we are, and then we'll get everything set up as you would in real life. So there's a view looking out towards Heathrow. That's Terminal 5 B gates that you see there. And yeah, the jumbo looks really nice. Not parked very well in the centre line. Uh, Maybe it was me that parked it. There's the teal and the APU. The detail there is incredible, the graphics. So we're in the cockpit of the 747, and actually everything in here looks really, really good. I flew the 400 series, which is a wee bit different from the Dash 8, which this is based on. But yeah, it looks really, really good. It sets you in the seat what seems a bit low. This you'd normally have these little. These are for your eye position, so your eye should basically be level with these. And I haven't really seen anybody. I don't even know if the seat would actually go this low. So to me, this looks about probably. I mean, I used to sit low on the jumbo anyway, but this looks probably more realistic of where you would actually be sitting as your seat position. Of course, you could go and sit in the co-pilot seat as well if you wanted to, but for this, we'll just stay on the left seat as the captain. So, yeah, that's the seat position. There's your eye position, roughly. So you're sitting in here, and generally it looks really, really good. So you can see here you've got the full cockpit, and this is exactly how the cockpit on the 747 is. So um, you've got two jump seats in the back. This one moves around actually, so it can slide left and right, and it'll slide forward and stuff back. This one here was fixed. You've got the bunk area, which is just in behind that door, so that's where you would go for your sleep on your longer trips. And this is the toilet, which is all exactly as it was. This is the little red button is the kill switch, so they call it kill switch for the lock on the flight deck door. So whenever that's down as it is now, the door is locked, so nobody can get in or out. And you have some controls on the panel here that control the opening and closing of that. This is a quick dawn mask, so every seat has a oxygen mask, which is what you call a quick dawn. Quick dawn, I guess, because it's quick to put on. You've got an audio panel there. We didn't have those on that seat, but we used to have one here, which is for this guy. Same here, you would have some stowage. We used to have all manuals and stuff in here until they got taken away. Everything was replaced with iPads, and spare bulbs were like that. This stowage was like that. Everything else looks really, really good. That's pretty much how it would be. Once you get in, you would jump into your seat, you would slide your chair back, and the first thing you'd have to do is power up the aircraft. So you get into it like this, and it's not very often you would get into it like this. Normally the engineers have been there before you and they've powered it up. But if you get in like it is here, you would pull out the checklist and you would go through it, and it would be an electrical power ups checklist. So one of the first things on it is to basically make sure of a couple of things. So that standby power should be in auto, and that's one of them. There was other things on it as well, like make sure the flap levers and up. It was basically a few things just to make sure that whenever you turn the battery on, nothing strange is going to happen that you're not expecting. So flick the battery on. So that's the aircraft powered up, and it's on battery only. So you'll notice that these 3 screens are on, and your standby display is on, but you've got these 2 screens are not on, and that's because the selection of the switches at the moment, which aren't working on this model, but you could change it in real life. The selection of the switches means that if you lose all your AC power, so your generators from engines or APU, your DC batteries, so your direct current batteries, which don't have that much life really in them. I think it's a minimum of 30 minutes that they need to operate for while running these systems. So they'll display these screens. So that's that. They're on standby power basically, so if all else fails, then you can run these off battery power for a while. And if you have the switch working, you could flick it over, and then the first officer would have these screens instead. So that's that, and then the next objective is to get some AC power connected to the aircraft. So we could either fire up the APU, which would burn fuel, or we can just, we've got external power available. You can see these lights, so we can just hit that, and that's powering all the electrical buses on the systems to give all the electrics that the aircraft needs. You can hear all the fans and everything kick in. That's what would happen in real life as well. You know, all your circulation and your air conditioning kicks on, so the aircraft basically springs into life whenever you do that. And most importantly, you would have your utility power on left and right, which is an op in this, but that means that you get power to your galleys, so your cabin crew can start making you a cup of tea. So that's basically the aircraft powered up. We've got AC power going to it. If you had synoptics, which we don't have working here, unfortunately they're all on op except for the fuel display and the engine display. But if you had the electrical synoptic, you could fire that up and you would see the synoptic of all the, basically a blown up animated version of this panel. So it would show you all the bus ties and everything lighting up, and that everything's getting power. So next from that, then you've got your hydraulic panel, which is just here. So this is basically what you would do. So now that the aircraft's powered up, so there's obviously going to be 2 pilots. For flight sim, okay, it's only going to be you. So the way it would work in the real world is one guy would program the computer, put all the route and stuff in, and he would set up the mode control panel, which is this panel here. So he would control, put all the stuff into the MCP panel and in the computer for your flight plan, etc. And then the other guy would do what we're gonna do now. So the electrical panel's all on, it's all configured for now. All these switches would be in, and they would have red lights on because there's no power coming from the generator. So that's right, and the bus tie switches should be all in auto. Down here, hydraulic panel. Isn't a lot working on this this base model, but there's basically 2 hydraulic pumps per engine. So there's an electric demand pump, which are these ones, and then there's also engine driven pumps which run off the actual engine whenever it's spinning. So the demand pumps normally would be all off, they're in auto here, that's fine, and then you would move some of them to aux, which is down on this side for engine starting, but we're not going to worry about that too much for now. Likewise, then you have, I'm going to change view actually to give you a better view. So you have your fire switches, so these would light up if you had an engine fire in any of them. There is ways of testing them on the actual aircraft, but we don't normally do it. It's normally carried out by engineers. Here's the APU fire handle as well for it, and you can see here you've got I think it was 2 bottles per wing. So this is a fire bottle, and this is another fire bottle. They wouldn't be lit up unless they had actually discharged, and I'm pretty sure they would light up red if they did. So there's your 2 bottles on the right wing, 2 bottles on the left wing, and then the APU has its own fire bottle as well. Then your cargo fire panel, fairly straightforward. You just select what hold, what underneath the aircraft you want the fire bottle to discharge into, click the button and it would discharge. Here we've got your engine start switches. so they just pull straight out. You get a better view probably from the side of those. And this is your fuel jettison panel, which also, oh, it's actually working. Okay, that's cool. So yeah, we can do some of that. You just select your remainder fuel here, and then you can open the switches and click the button, and away it goes. MLW, I guess, stands, this is different from the one I flew, but I guess it stands for max landing weight. So you can just, if you're needing to jettison fuel in a hurry, you can just click it over to max landing weight. I guess this is 2 systems maybe as well. But you put it in max landing weight, it'll bring you down to your maximum weight for landing. So if you need to get on the ground quickly, then you can just jettison fuel straight to your max landing weight, which is quite good. That's just, normally we would have set a predetermined figure on this, so that if we needed to jettison in a hurry, then we can just open the nozzles and blast it out. That's obviously only ever used for emergencies, and there's some restrictions on when you can and can't jettison fuel. But yeah, so this is a fuel panel. This is one of the few synoptics on the lower ICAS that's actually working. So let's see if we can get it up. So there's lower ICAS, and as you can see, we've got, this is in pounds of fuel, which is a bit weird for me. So I'm normally used to flying in kilos, which I think most of you probably use. And so you can see you've got engine 1, 2, 3, 4, and then all these little black boxes, or white boxes I should say, are all fuel pumps. Weirdly, we've got fuel in the stab tank, which is in the stabilizer at the back. Very, very rare that you would have stab fuel only for really, really long sectors, and even then it was quite unreliable. So sometimes the pumps would break and then you would end up with fuel stuck in the stabilizer, which has some issues for trim and stuff whenever you get the lightweight. But so normally you wouldn't have fuel in that. You would have fuel in the center tank before you have fuel in the stab. I have noticed some weird things with this, with this model, where it's quite hard in the loading page to actually get its center of gravity correct. So maybe that's why they've done it. But in real life, it would be very rare to have stab fuel. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You normally configure the fuel panel as such. So you would have crossfeeds on, and you would put all these pumps on. And I can't remember if you did this before start. I'm pretty sure you did do this before start, because they wouldn't, not sure. Anyway, you can put them all on anyway. And you would have these on as well, I guess. So that was it, configured for pushback. And if we look at the ICAS, now you'll see that they've all changed colour. So the green ones are the standard pumps, and these blue ones are more overpowered than the rest of them. I think they were called override pumps or something like that. So they're basically, whenever they're on and you've got all your crossfeed valves open, which are these valves here, that means that these pumps will supply fuel to all the engines, all 4 engines. And then later on you would change your panel so that you would configure tank to engine, and that basically means that you would turn your override pumps off, which are these 2, and you would turn your crossfeeds off, and that then should look like this, which is called tank to engine. So you've got this fuel pump and this tank supplying this engine, this fuel tank and these pumps supplying to this engine, and likewise all the same. So that would be configured tank to engine. So not going to worry about that now, we're going to just put all them on. Anti-ice would be an auto for engine anti-ice, and we didn't have auto wing anti-ice. Maybe that's a 747-8, but yeah, we just used to have a normal button where if we thought there was ice in the wings, then we would push the button. Window heat can go on, and weirdly one click hits both buttons. And you've also got your window wipers, which we wouldn't have on obviously. And yeah, that's pretty much that. Go back up again on the right hand side, we would come down, ram air turbine. I'm pretty sure the 747 I flew didn't have a ram air turbine. I'm not sure if the Dash 8 did. They said the 400 with the engines. Maybe it was because the engines were different. the engines rotating in the wind while you were gliding would have produced enough hydraulic pressure to power the flight controls. So yeah, interesting one. Doesn't work anyway. It's an op. Her computer passenger oxygen switch. That's if you have a decompression, you would flick that up, and that would drop all the rubber jungle, we call it, all the oxygen mass in the back. Yaw dampers are always on, and these are the manual outflow. So these are the outflow valves. Let's see if I can get a picture of one. If we go outside, so outflow valve, there they are. You can see them on the tail, and they are looking like they're open. They should be open at the minute, so they should be both fully open. These are what you control to pressurize the cabin pressure. So normally they're in automatic, but there is 2 buttons to put them in manual mode, and that would be if you had some sort of problem with the controllers for the pressurization. You could click those, and then you can use this little toggle switch here to open and close them to whatever pressurization that you needed. And that would be if your automatic cabin controllers failed, which are these 2 things here. Landing altitude push on. Not sure what that was. Landing altitude was set automatically by the computer. So on a 737 you have to set it in a window, but on the 747 it was automatic. So once again, it's an op, so you don't need to worry about it in flight sim. And then the air conditioning panel then. So this is your temperatures for your cabins and their cargo temperatures. So these knobs, you would just rotate them to heat up or cool down. And there would be a ICAS, or sorry, an ICAS button, which would ECS would bring up the air display and tell you all the temperatures and stuff in the cabin. And then you could tweak this if you needed to, but yeah, that's not modelled in this basic aircraft. Recirculation fans, they would both be on. They recirculate air around things like avionics and stuff, and vent overboard and stuff like that. So quite complex, really. Don't need to get into it. So what else have we got here? High flow switch would be kind of gives your air conditioning packs a little bit of a boost. So they put out more air. So if you had a warm cabin and you were trying to cool it down and stuff on the ground, you could use high flow, and it would put out extra air, kind of like max AC on your car if you've got a button for that. Pack reset, what you would push if you had a problem with a pack. You'd probably speak to engineering and see if they were happy for you to push it before you did, unless the checklist directed you to do that. Trimmer is basically like air mixing for heating and things like that. So we'll not get into it too much, it's kind of complicated for this, but yeah, that's where it kind of mixes air from an engine bleed to heat the cabin air up. Here's your air conditioning packs. So you've got 1, 2, 3. The Jumbo, whenever I flew it, wasn't very good at cooling down if it was too warm. There was so much in-flight entertainment and stuff on the newer versions of the cabins that they struggled to cool down if they got too hot. So yeah, but 3 packs and 2 isolation valves. This is your engine bleed, so this is where you would get air from to pressurize in order to start the engines and stuff like that. So if we start the APU now, then this being open would supply the air later for the engines to start. And then you've got your lights, basically pretty straightforward. Logo lights put lights on the tail, wing lights put shine lights on the front leading edge of the wing. Strobe lights are your white flashing lights. Nav lights are your lights on your wing, so you're green on green on the right and red on the left, I think it is. So let's check that out. I used to say red on your right gives you a fright, and oops, need to turn them on. Red on your right gives you a fright, and the reason for that was if there was a plane flying past your nose here, if you saw the red light, it meant it was pointing towards you because it was on their left wing, so they were going to fly out in front of you. So red on your right gives you a fright. You can thank my ground instructors for that one. Yeah, so there's a green light there, and you would normally have the nav lights on whenever the aircraft's powered. Depends on the airline. Some airlines that's that's kind of a standard operating procedure. If the aircraft has electrical power, the nav lights would be on. Some people turn them off if it's daylight because you don't need them for daylight, but can't really get too excited about it either way. Taxi light, beacon lights. We've got one on the top, one on the bottom. We would always put it on both. Taxi lights on the nose wheel, and turn off lights. I can't remember if they're on the nose wheel or if they're on the wings on the Jumbo. So let's have a look quickly. Oh yeah, there they are. So there's your turn off lights, and there's your taxi lights above them. So if we hit that button, there you go. So that's where both the taxi lights are. Cool. Landing lights, 4 of them. They're on the wings. You could see them there. Oops. Sorry, my mouse skills aren't very good. There and there. Panel lighting, dome lighting is basically kind of. Let me see if I can see them. It is the lights that light up the most of the area. So if we go back to here, you can probably see dome lights. Yeah, there's a dome light there. So it lights up the whole area of the flight deck. And then you've got glare shield lighting, storm lighting. You'd click that. I think it turns all the lights on full brightness if you're in a electrical storm. So if you've got thunder and lightning around you, and you don't want to get blinded by lightning, you put your storm light on. It's meant to help. Parking brake. Don't know why that's come up. Park brake set. That makes sense. Okay, cancel that. And that's broken. That's broken. Okay. So yeah, then we've got your compass. You come down, and then you would do your AFIS control panel. So you would set up your baro or minimums for your takeoff. So you could set these to normally they're set to 1,000 feet above airfield elevation, but for some reason the switch works, but it doesn't work on here. So I've tried figuring that out, but haven't got there yet. This is for setting the barometric pressure. So normally I would have it in hectopascals, but I don't. Yes, thank you. So that's what we would have it on the UK. So you can actually just press B, and it will set your altitude to your airfield elevation if you're on the ground. These are VOR and ADF switches, so depending on what you've got programmed in the FMC on the nav rad page, which is this one, we'll hide the yoke. So you could put in a VOR. So if I put in London, does it work? It would in the real plane. No, it doesn't, but I think it's 17.2. So now you can see there's a VOR on that side, and we have it selected to VOR. Strangely as well, I couldn't get this to work in the air. I just could not get it to actually put any arrows up. So it would normally point in the direction that a VOR is once it's tuned. It might not work on the ground because it might not have a signal, but once you get in the air and you've got line of sight, it should work. And I just could not get it working, so don't know what's wrong with that. Likewise with ADF, if we let me see what an ADF frequency is. We've got 352 for Widley. And yeah, still no indications, so don't know what's wrong with those switches on this. Really kind of disappointing that VORs and ADFs don't work. Thankfully ILSs do, but yeah, I'll talk about some of the stuff that's broken with it later. Some of it's kind of disappointing, but I guess it's early days still. Like all games, it's probably been released a little bit earlier than it should have. I mean, look, graphics and everything, weather systems, physics are kind of amazing. Some of the aircraft don't fly the way they should, and this is one of them, but we'll talk about that a wee bit later in another video probably. So here we've got the control panel. We've got your speed window, your heading window, your altitude window, and so here you can set your speed. So you would normally set your V2 speed that the computer's worked out. for takeoff. You would always have your flight directors on now, so that's them on, and these pink lines come up and it says Toga Toga. That's for takeoff. And then you would probably have LNAV and VNAV armed, because the other guy will have programmed the FMC. There is a kind of data entry procedure for putting in all your performance details into the computer, so you would do that together to make sure you don't make any mistakes. And then you would go to your takeoff page, and you would fill this all in together, and then it says V2 is 229, so you would set 229 in this window. That seems like quite a high V2, but yeah, I don't think the performance is right either on this base model. I'll talk about that in a minute. This is the runway, this is the heading, so you should set that the runway heading, which is 271, which, oops, it was already set to. This thing that I've just messed around with is the bank limit, so the most bank that it will allow, and it would always be set on the pre-flight stage anyway to auto. Later on, if you were in the cruise and you wanted to do a really shallow bank turn to course correct or go around something or whatever, you might play with that, but normally it was always left in auto. Vertical speed window, that would show you your vertical speed. I wonder, does it work? Yeah. So it would show your, and you would, so obviously the higher, this is your feet per minute, so, but that would never be on the ground, so, and I can't seem to take it off now. Okay, weird. Anyway, there we go. Altitude window, so you would set your altitude for your standard instrument departure. So today we're going to be doing a GOGSI, I think. So let me just get it up. There it is. So this is London Heathrow, and we're going to be taking off 27 right. So we're going to be doing a GOGSI 2 Foxtrot, I think it was. So it's basically comes out from the runway 270, goes out to 3 miles from the London VOR, and we'll do more of these later, but yeah, this is really, really brief. Then goes on the 256 radial from the London VOR. So it's the 256 radial, but it would be yeah, it would be 256 that you'd be tracking the direction that you're heading as well, out to 7 miles, and then you're turning right onto heading of 269 to intercept the 269 radial to Woodley, and we'll do some NDB tracking whenever actually everything works. You need to be 3,000 feet at 9.3 miles from London. You need to be 4,000 feet or above, which is the line underneath it, at 13 miles, and then you're turning left again onto the 214 radial to intercept the, sorry, you're turning left onto 214 degrees to intercept the 034 radial from Southampton, and then you need to be 5,000 feet here, 6,000 feet here at 29.6 miles from Southampton, and then GOGSI is here at 24 miles from Southampton, and you need to be at 6,000 feet. So yeah, 6,000 feet in there. We'll not do too much on that today, but that would be what you would that would be what you set up. So yeah, that's the autopilot. That's the altitude window. So we set 6,000 feet. These are your autopilot buttons. So normally you would only have one selected unless you were doing an ILS approach, and then I think it was 1,500 feet or something. All three would engage. And that would be for auto landing if you're in poor visibility, stuff like that. Other flight director switch, which would turn off the flight director on this side. On this, only one switch turns both of them off. Is your autopilot disengage bar, so it would make a similar noise to that, I guess, in real life. And this is your yoke, and you also have an autopilot disengage switch here. And you would just press that, and press it once, it'll disconnect, and then it would put the alarm on, press it again, and it would turn the autopilot disconnect alarm off. So these we've talked about already. This is your AFIS control panel, and for the sorry, your ICAS control panel for your lower ICAS. And the only one that actually works is your engine and your fuel. Status switch, it doesn't work. Electric fuel, none of, or sorry, electric ECS, flight controls, hydraulics, doors. So that would show what doors are open. Gear synopsis would show your landing gear wheels and what your pressures are. And info, don't think we had. nav would basically show this display down here, so it's good if you're kind of briefing each other. This button is a cancel recall button, so you could cancel if you had ICAS messages up here, you can cancel them. So, but that doesn't work. So in Flight Sim we have to click this button. So yep, that's that. Same on the other side. I will not talk about that side too much. There's not really very much different there. Just you've got these ground prox override switches which would override warnings. So you press those for overriding certain things with checklists. So if you weren't doing a full flap landing for some sort of problem you had, you might click flap override and stuff like that. Well, not look at these alternate flaps aren't working. You don't need to worry about them unless you've lost some form of hydraulic system which powers the flaps. And these are alternate gear extensions, which we also aren't going to worry about. Gear lever, auto brake lever. Auto brake would always be an RTO for takeoff, in case you reject the takeoff. I think it was 85 knots. If you're above that, it would automatically engage the auto brakes to stop you on the runway. If you weren't above 85 knots, then you would have to use manual braking yourself. I think it was 85 knots. You've got your engine display. So this says takeoff. Outside air temperature is 21 degrees. This is your actual probe temperature. So as you start flying, you'll get kinetic heating on that. So it actually won't be a true representation of the outside air temperature. To get that, you need to get the temperature normally from the progress page. I think it was progress page 2, which is modeled in this, and that would tell you your actual outside air temperature. Wouldn't be surprised if the TAT shows your actual outside air temperature in Flight Sim. Says engine anti-icing here. It's in auto, so you wouldn't expect it to be on, so that shouldn't be there. This is your exhaust gas temperature. Sorry, this is your N1 here. So this is the big fan at the front of the engine, the big massive blades that you see as a passenger. This is how fast they're spinning, so it's a percentage of how fast they're spinning. Then your exhaust gas temperature, and these are all more or less around what the outside air temperature is, which is what you'd expect. You'll see that heat up whenever you start the engine, and likewise they can take quite a long time to cool down again after you shut down the engine if it's warm outside. These are all a bit different from what we had. It's showing you your gross weight and your fuel. This is your outside air temperature corrected actually, or it should be. So that's the one that would be on your progress page 2. So that should show your actual outside air temperature. So this should be warmer than this whenever we get going, and we'll have a look at that later. Duct pressure is excuse me. Duct pressure is how much pressure is in the air conditioning ducts. So at the minute you would expect there to be duct pressure because the APU is on, it's running, and we have got the APU bleed on, so duct pressure should show something, but it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't show anything until you go to start the engines. I can't remember. Nah, I'm pretty sure it would have shown something. Carbon altitude, and then we've already talked about the fuel page. This is your brake source accumulator. So that is your, whenever you power up your hydraulic pressure, it should go and be in the green area. And if you lost all of your hydraulic pressure for your brakes, so if you lost your normal system and your alternate system, then this would be what you could use to stop. So this is taking longer than I thought actually. Switches, none of these seem to work. They're for like data sources off computers and stuff, so you would only really use these if you had some sort of issue with electrical systems or air system that was powering or bringing data to your airspeed, stuff like that. So they would be used in association with checklists. This is panel lighting, push to talk button, push to talk button. Don't know why there's two push to talk buttons. Normally one of these would be a stopwatch for the clock, which would be here, but there is no clock. So yeah, that's it. This is the steering tiller for the rudders, and you can see actually, like, it shouldn't work. It's not moving at the minute because the hydraulics aren't powered. Okay, so a quick overview of the FMC. It's very, very basic as well, but quite nice that they've actually managed to detail some of it. So you would go in here, there's nothing really actually for you to do here. You would check information normally, but I guess in Flight Sim it doesn't really matter. If you've got the wrong database, you're not going to get yourself in too much trouble. Reference airport, we'll put in Heathrow, so you put whatever airport you're at, and then you line select. By line select I mean click the button next to GPS position, and then you would put that in your IRS. So say set IRS position, click it in, and then that means that these three bad boys up here would align, and they're not modeled, so but you still need to put in the position, which is kind of good, I guess. Your routes in here, so we were going from London Heathrow to Palma de Mallorca, 27 right, flight number, and then you can request a route normally, but our route is already in here. So this is the departure, it's going to Gogsy, and then we're going direct to Seatet, and then we're going on our way Alpha 34 to Etrat, Alpha 34 to DVL, I can't remember, is that Dover? Can't remember. Don't think it is actually. And then on down, and an arrival eventually into Palma. So that's all set up on the page in Flight Sim whenever you set up your departure, arrivals and everything, and that's really cool. That saves loads of time. You can do stuff like you can, let's say you wanted to go miss out Seatet, so you wanted to go Gogsy direct to Seatet, you would click on Etrat, put it in the bottom there in the scratch pad, and then you would click it there, which doesn't work, and then you would hit execute, and that would change your flight plan. Oh, okay, that worked for some reason. How do I erase that then? There would normally be an erase prompt, but there isn't. So, well, just execute it for now because we're not going to actually do that. So yeah, that's that. If I click load again, will it? If I, okay, I don't know. Okay, yeah, so that's that. You've got your thrust levers, and you've got your reverse thrust. So there's normally two stages in reverse thrust on the Jumbo. The first position that you would bring it to that kind of stops in is reverse idle, so it means the reversers open but they don't give you any actual thrust, and then you can go the next one, which is full reverse, and that would give you full kind of reverse in the engines. Speed brake lever, normally there's an arm position, which I think is there on this because it would just pop up like that. And then you've got your flight detent, so that's where it would extend to in the air, and then you've got your full ground position for whenever they're deployed on the ground, and so that's where that would go. Need to look up how to arm them. There's your flap lever, and you've got a trim buttons here for like a backup trim, and these are your stab trim cutout switches, so if your trim started to run away on you without you wanting to, you would open these, click them, and that would stop you from getting too out of control and your stabilizer going in a position you wouldn't want it. These are the engine fuel switches, so you would just, they pull out and then click in, and you use these for starting engines, and they also light up red if you have an engine fire detected. Radios, audio control panel, another radio, so this is probably VHF 1, VHF 2, VHF 3, audio control panel, and you would press these buttons to get the audio from whatever ones, and then you would press whatever one you want to talk on, and they wouldn't say mic or call on them, so the one that you were going to talk on would say mic on it, and then yeah, it's weird because some of them work and some of them don't. Like I'm trying to click on those, can't click on those, but I can click on these, but it's really weird. Okay, because normally you'd have this green light on if you were listening to it, and this is your volume. So if you're listening to VHF left, the green light will be on, and you'd normally have flight on, which is your intercom between everybody, and this is your volume for it, so that would be green, but you wouldn't have the mic on it unless that was the only thing you'd selected. Likewise, you normally listen to the cabin volume, so you can hear whenever the cabin crew are talking to you, and PA is for listening to the public address system, so whenever the captain's giving his spiel to the passengers. Flight deck door access button and seatbelt sign, and then cabin chime. That's for alerting the cabin crew of taking off, etc. So that's the basic overview. I think we're ready to push back, so let's have a quick scan. So that's all on, that's all set, fuel panel set, engine anti-ice are all in auto, air conditioning panel, everything's set. We have our EFIS control panel set, our mode control panel set for departure. We have our auto brakes and RTO, and we would have our baro altitude in here, but it's not working. We'd have our FMC set. We would, if we were pilot flying, we'd have the takeoff page on our side. Another guy might have a legs page on his side, but only one page is working, so we'll have takeoff page. Now you come down here, the speed brake would be stowed. There on idle, stow speed brake. Don't make me talk to you again. Okay, that's not working. This is all working. Yeah, so doors, you check the doors, see if the doors are all closed, and you'd call up the ground crew guy and you'd say you're clear to disconnect ground power. He would pull these out. You wouldn't tell him you're clear to disconnect until you'd selected the APU, otherwise it would all go dark. But so we would select those, tell him he can disconnect the external power. He would pull all the plugs out downstairs, close the hatches, and then we would get ready for push. So we'd call up ATC. So we'll end this one there now. 42 minutes is a lot longer than I thought that was going to take. But yeah, we're all ready to go. Our jumbo's ready for push. So normally you would expect to see the tug would be actually connected to the aircraft, and all the ground stuff would be clear, and we would be ready to go. So we'll pick up at pushback and engine start. Probably the next video will be push, engine start, and taxi out. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.